Hello everyone, my name is Maria, and today I'd like to talk about book recommendations for the book recommendation tag. And I first found that tag at Sunny Sammy's blog. I'll leave the link below. So I'm not sure if that's the original creator, but this is where I found the questions. And I thought it would be great to talk about different book recommendation prompts and see if maybe some of you have read those books. And of course, I'll be referring a lot to my favorite notebook because there are 15 books that we're going to talk about today. So the first prompt is a book you tell people is your favorite. Okay, so my favorite book, and I tell everyone that it's my favorite, it's The Hunchback of Notre Dame by Victor Hugo. And it's one of the classics. It was written back in 1831, and I think it still stays as a classic. It still stays relevant because it explores topics like discrimination and discrimination within professional field, personal, different discrimination types according to what someone looks like, and this whole concept of not judging the book by its cover. So I think it stays really relevant. It is still my favorite book. I love reading and rereading it pretty often. And then the second recommendation is a book that is your guilty pleasure. Okay, so this one was hard for me to pick because I don't engage in, like taste shaming, like book shaming and saying that, if someone reads certain books, then, they're not like intelligent or whatnot. So to me, I don't think there's like guilty genres. But if we jump on this bandwagon, maybe I can consider Twilight in Venice by Stephen Carroll as a little bit of guilty pleasure. Just because like the book itself is pretty short. It centers around a relationship between an international student and an older professor in music, and the book actually ends. The book actually has a twist at the end, which I like. I think the author, ethically speaking, finished that book exactly like it should be. A lot of readers don't like it though. So this book is slightly controversial, maybe because of its ending, because of other reasons. So we could consider it a guilty pleasure. I don't know. Third one. A book everyone loved, but you didn't. Okay, so this one I want to hide a little bit behind my notebook here, because just don't throw like rotten apples or tomatoes at me. I did not really enjoy The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman, and I know so many people really loved it. Okay, so it's not like I think it's badly written. I can tell if something is well written even if I didn't like the book itself. I think the story didn't just resonate with me. Maybe I read it at the wrong time, like wrong place, maybe wrong mindset, but I think The Ocean at the End of the Lane, it's not quite a fairy tale, it's not quite realism. I couldn't put any, how they say, like a theoretical framework around it. Like I didn't really know where to put it or like by which standards to assess it. So when I read it, I was like, okay, I read a lot. What did I just read? How do I even make sense out of it? So sorry fans, nothing against Neil Gaiman, it's just maybe this is not the type of story for me. And then the fourth one is a book you read and read the fastest. Okay, so I think I read Flowers for Mrs. Harrison by Paul Gallico pretty fast. And the book is pretty short. The story is blazing. It's like, one of those, I can compare it to a short film where like it's punchy but it's short and you get lots of fun, but like you don't spend too much time with the story. So basically the story revolves around Mrs. Harrison, who has been a cleaner, I believe, and she saves up some money and she buys a very expensive dress, and that leads her onto a few adventures. And I actually believe that Paul Gallico actually wrote continuation and turned it into a series. I haven't read the series yet, but I'm considering that. Okay, number 5. So a book that deserves more hype. Okay, so I think the book The Naked Sun by Isaac Asimov absolutely deserves a lot more hype. because like first of all, this book just contains all of the Hollywoodish action types, so you know, sex, violence, I believe even some curse language, it has it all. Second, it's very emotionally moving, so we're basically all the action happens far in the future. We are on a very distant planet, Solaria, and there people grew accustomed to living very far from each other, and not only that, they became disgusted by each other, so they don't want to see each other. They communicate by video, so kind of like equivalent of modern Zoom calls, but they are literally disgusted by each other, except a few who are still not disgusted, and the main characters are on this planet investigating a murder, and one of the main characters is artificial intelligence, intelligent robot. In fact, there are two robots involved. One is Ardenil, which is my favorite character of all times. I will talk about that more. And another robot who plays the key role not only in this book but also in the whole series that Isaac Asimov wrote about humans and robots. So Naked Sun, I believe it deserves more hype. I know Apple TV released the series based on Foundations, which is a part of this series. Naked Sun just comes a bit before the Foundations, but I think Naked Sun deserves its own movie, if not a whole series. Yeah. Okay, number 6. So that's a book that is becoming a movie or a TV show. Okay, so Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmes. So that's becoming a TV show on Apple TV, I know. I haven't seen it yet. I recently read Lessons in Chemistry. I loved it so much. This is what I call a dark academia, not like your, you know, secret societies and drinking teenagers, because this, like, Bonnie Garmes really goes into some gruesome details which are sometimes happening behind the scenes within academia, or could be within other industry, but she goes into like academia specifically. The pluses and minuses of this book, I don't want to concentrate on things which I had questions about, or the minor things which I consider like minuses of this book, because I believe more books like that should exist. But you know, maybe I'll make a separate video about that. Yeah. Yeah, okay, number 7. That's a book you have reread the most. Okay, so the book that I have read the most, I think The Man Who Laughs, again by Victor Hugo. I can't help it, Victor Hugo is my favorite writer. So The Man Who Laughs, also classic novel, centers around a traveling circus, and the main character is the boy who was pretty severely disfigured right after he was born, and he's presented as one of the main acts. And we follow his story and how he's becoming a teenager and then a grown man, and all of the adventures that he experiences, how his appearance affects his life. And also we follow side stories about other characters in this traveling circus. It's a very hard read. I think I read it pretty early, I would say like when I was about 13, and of course my understanding of the story quite evolved since then, but yeah, I love rereading that book. Okay, number 8, so a book from a genre you don't typically read. Okay, so this one is One Day in December, and this is like one of the, you know, modern like rom-coms, or it's presented as one of those, like, you know, rom-coms that you would read around the holidays time, and I actually didn't expect anything else out of it. So I expected it to be like a super light read, like nothing to think about, but actually the author managed to bring up a few really great topics, such as self-identity, and she follows the main characters who are in their 20s. They first see each other on a bus stop, and then they lose track of each other, and then they try to find each other. So yes, the plot sounds pretty straightforward, but it's not the plot, because yes, by the name of the book and by like the short blurb, like at the beginning of the book, we ought to know what's going to happen to them, but the way the author describes what characters are feeling, how they're trying to establish themselves in this professional world and social world in their 20s, I found was pretty accurate. Yeah, okay, so then the next one is a book that deserves all the hype it gets. Okay, so I think Babel by R.F. Kwon deserves all the hype that it's been getting on BookTube, like TikTok, like all of the platforms, because this is, I find that this is fairly accurate depiction of some of the underlying like problems and issues that any academic system might have. I know some people, so basically the story centers around a group of students in completely fictional Oxford. It's not like real one, and there's magic in this world which is based on translations, and the students from this group get sucked into, how do I say without spoilers if you haven't read it yet, a series of events that could lead to criminal offenses. Let's call it this way. So basically, I thought that this is such an accurate description and accurate account of how easy it is to get in trouble with the law, for example, how easy it is to just like divert from the right path by a series of very, very small actions. The book is very tragic. I do believe the author at the end left us a little bit of hope that there might be continuation, but there's no continuation just yet, at least not that I'm aware of. If you're aware of it, let me know. But yeah, I think Babel deserves all the hype. I would really recommend it to anyone who is going into any type of secondary education. Please read. Yeah, so next one is a book you usually recommend when asked to give a recommendation. Okay, so the book I always recommend is I, Robot by Isaac Asimov. I'll tell you why. First of all, because it's a series of short stories, but all of them are united by a common theme. And second, I think it's really relevant right now when we are getting a lot more accustomed to the usage of artificial intelligence in our daily lives. And Asimov really explores what artificial intelligence is, what it is not, and what are some of the consequences that we might have depending on what we let artificial intelligence help us with. So that's why, and also just like in case you're worried that, it's this type of story that robots will take over the world. No, actually Asimov has a very distinct understanding of what robots will do or will not do. It's not gruesome or like it's not violent, but it's just like a very interesting study, a very fun study, a really great thought experiment of what our society can be once artificial intelligence is a lot more developed. Yeah. Okay, number 11. So that's a book that has your favorite character in it. Okay, so I just can't stop talking about Isaac Asimov's books today, and this is because, Victor Hugo, Isaac Asimov, those are my favorite authors, and Caves of Steel, that's one of the first novels of this whole cycle of humans and robots, and then Foundation and Empire. That's one that I mentioned. Foundation is being adapted as Apple TV series. So in Caves of Steel, this is the first time we see my absolute all-time favorite literary character, robot, R. Daniel. And by the way, he's not Daniel, as some people I hear pronounce. He's really Daniel with double E. And basically, he's a very intelligent robot, and he's programmed to help humans in, like, for example, in discovering and investigating different crimes. So this is the first time we see him. He is intended to solve a crime with a human detective, Elijah Bailey. And they will solve crimes together in the next few books. So Caves of Steel, that's the first time that they come together. And Arden Eel, he's such a powerful representation of what it means to be truly valuing human life, what it means to truly be a friend. Even though he's not human, he really shows us those human values, and this is why I really, really enjoy him as a character and the whole series, the whole book series. I should make a separate video about all of the books in that series. I just haven't got around to do that. Yeah, so number 12, Moments. So a book you wish you could live in. So I would love to live in the book Moments and the Comet by Ture Jansson. And this is a Swedish author, and Moomins is also extremely popular series of books and comic books. And why I would love to live in this world? Just because, first of all, I'm familiar with this world since I was a child. So, growing up in Ukraine, actually, Moomin series by Tove Jansson is a very popular book to read with children of all ages. And my mom made sure that I really come to love this story. And Moomins are basically very small creatures. They usually live either in the forests or behind chimneys in human households. And they are so cozy. They like walk around the forest. They drink tea. They like precisely this Moments on the Comet. They are suspecting that comet is going to hit the earth, and they want to save everyone around in this forest. So it's a very nice, cozy read. But on the other hand, if you're planning to read it with children, you will need to edit out a lot of things, because you will see that Tove Jansson, probably the way she was writing it, I'm pretty sure she was writing it more for adults, but with children in mind. So don't think of Moomins as of just a novel for kids. It is much for adults or for any age. Yeah, number 13. So a book you thought you would hate but ended up loving. Okay, so I actually was pretty sure that I would hate the Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I don't know why I got into myself. Probably because some of my friends said that, like, yes, it will be interstellar travel, and it looks a little bit like Interstellar movie. And then there's also artificial intelligence slightly involved and alien life slightly involved. And for some reason, I imagined it to be those, like huge action Hollywood movies, which I don't really appreciate as much, just my taste. But actually, it turned out to be something totally different. Really, Project Hail Mary, there's only two characters, actually, well, three, that we are getting familiar with. The first one is a school teacher who left his academic career, and then the other character, yes, it will be interstellar being. It's not as much of a spoiler, because I believe something like that is even mentioned in the book description. But yeah, in any case, the school teacher is forced to become interstellar traveler because there is a certain tragedy, a certain catastrophe that Earth is facing, and only him, because he has written a very niche scientific paper, nobody else looked at this problem, only he is the number one expert, becomes number one expert in this type of problem. So he travels, and there's a very unexpected twist at the end. The book is very emotional at times, so I would definitely recommend it. I loved reading it, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you will love it too. Okay, so the next one, number 14, a book that made you cry. Okay, so the book The Wife by Meg Wolitzer. Okay, it not only did it make me cry, it's one of those books where I read for 15 minutes, and then I went to a corner and I cried for 30 minutes, and then I read for 15 more minutes, and then I went back to the corner to cry for 30 more minutes. And I feel like I'm going to cry even right now, seriously. I'm just like trying to mask it pretty well. Yeah, so Meg Wolitzer, The Wife, some of you may have seen the movie because it was adapted into a movie. The movie, I would say, is just as good. It just focuses on slightly different aspects of the book, so please read the book if you saw the movie. Basically, we have a couple, so a literature professor and his wife, and we find out that there's certain academic, how do I say, if you haven't read it yet without spoilers, I would say there's certain academic dishonesty involved in this story. What exactly? Please read the book. And if some of you, while you're reading this book, are going to think that the author is exaggerating something, please keep in mind that she's not exaggerating. If anything, she's minimizing things. So please read The Wife when you can. Yeah. And the last one, number 15. A book you wish you could read for the first time. Okay, so for this one, my choice is The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna. So, The Great Alone takes us all the way to Alaska, where a family of like husband, wife, and their daughter decides to move to get some land to start living more eco-friendly and independent lifestyle. But there is abuse involved, and this leads the entire family, especially the main character, which is the daughter, into a turmoil of very unfortunate events. So I don't want to give any spoilers. If you read books by Kristen Hanna, you know that they always have a bit of light at the end of the tunnel, so this book is not an exception, but I just don't want to give out any more significant details just in case. Okay, so those were 15 books in a book recommendations tag. Please let me know if you've read some of them, and I really enjoyed making this video and thinking of all of those books. Please let me know which ones are your favorites, and see you in the next video.